Hey guys, tonight we're drifting back to the ancient city of Alexandria, just as the first light of dawn slips over the horizon and paints the marble columns in a soft, golden haze. The city is quieter than usual, as if it's holding its breath. You're here, wandering the empty streets, wrapped in a linen cloak that's a little too big, and sandals that have seen better days. The Mediterranean breeze is gentle, carrying the faint scent of salt, figs, and the last traces of incense from a temple ceremony that ended hours ago. You probably wouldn't survive this era for long unless you have a secret talent for dodging Roman tax collectors or a deep love for barley bread. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you re-listening from and what time it is for you. I love seeing sleepy history fans from all over the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step out onto the main avenue, the Canopic Way, where the city's famous white stones are still cool from the night. Alexandria is waking up slowly, the way a cat stretches in a patch of sun. Shopkeepers are just beginning to open their shutters, and the first fishermen are hauling their boats up onto the shore, their nets heavy with silver flashes of morning catch. The city is quieter than it's been in years. There are no royal processions, no crowds gathered to catch a glimpse of Cleopatra's gilded barge. The queen is gone, and with her, the last whispers of Egypt's ancient dynasty have faded into the sea breeze. You pass a statue of Alexander the Great, his marble gaze fixed on the horizon. Once this city was the beating heart of the Mediterranean, a place where philosophers argued in the shade of colonnades and poets scribbled verses by lamplight. Now the air feels different, lighter, but also a little uncertain, as if everyone is waiting to see what comes next. A few Roman soldiers march by, their armor clinking softly, looking more bored than menacing. They nod at you, barely noticing as you slip past. The city is theirs now, but even they seem unsure of their place in this ancient, sprawling metropolis. One widely accepted fact: after Cleopatra's death, Egypt became a Roman province, ruled not by pharaohs, but by distant emperors and their appointed governors. But here's a lesser-known detail. For many Alexandrians, life went on much as before. The bread still had to be baked, the fish still caught, and the cat still lounged in every sunbeam they could find. You wander through the agora, the city's bustling marketplace. Though this early in the morning, it's more of a gentle murmur than a roar. A baker is kneading dough, his hands moving in a rhythm passed down through generations. A pair of philosophers argue quietly over a basket of olives, their voices low and sleepy. You catch a few words something about fate, or maybe just the price of figs. Historians still wonder if the city's famous intellectual debates ever really stopped, or if they simply shifted to quieter corners and softer tones. You pause at the edge of the harbor, watching as the sun climbs higher, turning the water to liquid gold. The great Pharos lighthouse stands in the distance, its flames still burning, guiding ships safely to shore. For a moment, you close your eyes and listen. The gentle slap of waves against stone, the distant call of a gull, the soft hum of a city learning to move at a new, slower pace. A fisherman nearby offers you a fig, and you accept, savoring its sweetness. He shrugs when you ask about the new Roman rulers. The river still flows, he says, and the sun still rises. That's enough for me. You nod, understanding that for most people, history's grand events are just background noise to the daily business of living. As the city wakes, you notice small changes. The royal banners are gone, replaced by Roman standards. The coins in your pocket bear the face of Augustus, not Cleopatra. But the bread tastes the same, and the cats still rule the alleys with quiet authority. Alexandria is changing, but it's also staying the same in all the ways that matter. You wander back through the city, past the library's grand entrance, where a sleepy scholar is already sweeping the steps. He glances up, gives you a nod, and goes back to his work. The scrolls inside hold stories of kings and queens, of battles and betrayals, but outside, life continues in its gentle, unhurried way. As the sun climbs higher, the city grows busier. Children chase each other through the streets, their laughter echoing off the stone walls. Merchants set out their wares, spices, glass, papyrus, while a group of musicians tunes their lyres in the shade. You find a quiet spot beneath a fig tree and sit, letting the sounds of Alexandria wash over you. The city is different now, but it's still alive, still beautiful in its own sleepy way. You close your eyes, feeling the warmth of the sun on your face, and let yourself drift. The world is changing, but for this moment, you are simply here breathing in the soft air of a city at dawn, listening to the gentle heartbeat of history as it moves quietly into a new day. The sun is a little higher now, and Alexandria is stretching into the day. You wander through the city's winding streets, noticing the subtle ways the Romans have begun to settle in. Their presence is everywhere, but it's not the thunderous arrival of an invading army, more like the slow, steady drip of new customs, new faces, and new routines blending into the old. You pass a group of Roman officials gathered in the shade of a portico, their togas crisp and their sandals suspiciously clean. They're deep in conversation, their Latin words rolling off their tongues like pebbles in a stream. One of them gestures toward a map, tracing lines with a short, stubby finger. You catch a few familiar words: grain, taxes, census. The business of empire, it seems, is mostly paperwork and polite arguments about wheat. A Roman centurion stands nearby, his helmet tucked under his arm, looking more interested in the bakery across the street than in the meeting. He glances at you, offers a small, tired smile, and then returns to watching a cat that's eyeing his sandals with clear intent. You get the sense that, for all their power, the Romans are just as susceptible to Alexandria's feline overlords as anyone else. One widely accepted fact: after Cleopatra's fall, Egypt became the personal property of the Roman emperor, not just another province. The grain from the Nile was now destined for Rome's hungry citizens, and Alexandria became a vital link in the empire's food chain. But here's a lesser-known detail. The Romans, for all their efficiency, were often baffled by Egypt's ancient traditions. There are stories of Roman officials trying to understand the local calendar, only to give up and let the priests handle it. Historians still wonder if the Romans ever truly grasped the mysteries of the Nile's floods, or if they just pretended to, nodding wisely while secretly hoping for the best. You stroll past the old royal palace, now occupied by Roman administrators. The grand halls that once echoed with the laughter of Cleopatra and her court are quieter now, filled with the scratch of quills and the shuffle of parchment. A scribe sits at a desk near the entrance, his nose buried in a scroll, occasionally pausing to dip his pen in ink and sigh dramatically. You wonder if he's writing a letter home or just doodling tiny gladiators in the margins. Outside, the city's rhythms continue. Market vendors call out in a mix of Greek, Egyptian, and now Latin, their voices weaving together in a tapestry of sound. You watch as a Roman merchant haggles with a local potter over the price of a jug, both of them gesturing wildly and laughing when they finally settle on a number. The potter slips a small amulet into the merchant's hand, a token of good luck, or maybe just a clever way to ensure repeat business. You pause at a fountain, its water sparkling in the sunlight. A group of children are playing nearby, their games a blend of old and new. One child wears a makeshift laurel wreath, pretending to be a Roman senator, while another insists on being Cleopatra, complete with a reed scepter and a regal scowl. Their laughter is infectious, and you can't help but smile at the way history is already being rewritten in the minds of the next generation. The city's temples are quieter, too. The priests still perform their rituals, but now there are Roman officials watching from the shadows, taking notes and whispering among themselves. You wonder what they make of the incense, the chanting, the offerings of bread and honey. Do they see it as superstition, or do they feel the same quiet awe that you do, standing in the cool, dim light of the sanctuary? You wander into a small tavern where the air is thick with the scent of roasting lamb and the low hum of conversation. A Roman soldier sits at the bar, sharing a plate of olives with a local fisherman. They're swapping stories, one about a storm on the Tiber, the other about a crocodile in the Nile. You listen, sipping a cup of watered wine, and realize that for all the changes, some things remain the same. People still gather to eat, to talk, to laugh at the absurdities of life. Historians still debate how much the Romans changed Alexandria and how much Alexandria changed the Romans. Did the city's famous library influence Roman thought, or did Roman order bring new life to the city's chaotic streets? The truth, as always, is probably somewhere in between, a slow blending of cultures, a gentle tug-of-war between old and new. As the day wears on, you find yourself back at the harbor, watching as Roman ships unload their cargo amphorae of wine, bolts of cloth, crates of olive oil. The dock workers move with practiced ease, their shouts echoing across the water. A Roman officer oversees the operation, his face stern, but his eyes softening as a stray cat weaves between his legs. He bends down, scratches the cat behind the ears, and for a moment he's just another person in a city full of stories. You walk along the waterfront, the sun warm on your back, and feel the gentle pulse of Alexandria beneath your feet. The city is changing, yes, but it's also absorbing, adapting, and quietly teaching its new rulers the art of living by the sea. You pause, close your eyes, and let the sounds of the city wash over you, the laughter, the music, the distant call of a vendor selling dates. Alexandria endures, as it always has, one sunrise at a time. His sun is now high, casting sharp shadows along Alexandria's winding lanes. You find yourself wandering deeper into the city, where the grand marble facades give way to quieter neighborhoods, places where the rhythms of daily life have always moved to their own gentle beat. Here, the changes brought by Rome are less dramatic, more like a new flavor in an old recipe. You pass a row of market stalls, their awnings fluttering in the breeze. The vendors are busy arranging baskets of dates, figs, and pomegranates, their hands moving with practiced ease. A woman selling bread greets you with a nod, her eyes crinkling in a smile. She's been here since before Cleopatra's reign, and she's seen rulers come and go. The taxes change, but the bread stays the same, she says, handing you a warm, crusty loaf. You take a bite, savoring the familiar taste, and realize that for most people, history is measured in loaves and laughter, not in the rise and fall of empires. A group of children dart past, their laughter echoing off the sun-baked walls. They're playing a game that's part hopscotch, part something you can't quite identify, perhaps a new Roman import, or maybe just a local invention. One boy wears a faded amulet shaped like the god Horus, while another sports a Roman coin on a string around his neck. The old and the new, side by side, woven together in the way only children can manage. You wander into a small workshop where a potter is shaping clay on a spinning wheel. His hands are steady, his focus absolute. On the shelves behind him, you spot jars painted with scenes of Egyptian gods, but also a few with Roman eagles and laurel wreaths. People like what's familiar, he tells you, but they're curious about what's new. He shrugs, as if to say that a good pot will find a home, no matter whose face is painted on it. One widely accepted fact: after Egypt became a Roman province, many local customs and traditions continued, often blending with Roman practices. The temples still held ceremonies for Isis and Osiris, but now there were also festivals for Jupiter and Mars. But here, as a lesser-known detail, some Egyptians found clever ways to keep their old beliefs alive, even as they outwardly adopted Roman ways. Amulets were hidden in the folds of togas, prayers whispered in the old tongue before Roman banquets. Historians still wonder how much of this blending was genuine, and how much was simply a way to keep the Pisand, the gods, happy. You stroll past a temple, its columns rising like ancient trees against the sky. The priests move quietly, their white linen robes glowing in the sunlight. They light incense, offer bread and fruit, and murmur prayers that have been spoken for centuries. A Roman official stands nearby, watching with polite curiosity. He asks a few questions, scribbles notes on a wax tablet, and then moves on, perhaps a little more respectful than before. In the city's quieter corners, you find small shrines tucked into doorways and courtyards. Some are dedicated to Egyptian gods, others to Roman deities, and a few to both, just in case. You pause at one, a tiny alcove filled with flowers, coins, and a small clay cat. You leave a fig as an offering, feeling a sense of connection to all those who have come before you, each one hoping for a little luck, a little protection, a little peace. You make your way to the docks, where fishermen are mending their nets. They talk about the river, the weather, and the price of fish, rarely about politics. One of them, an older man with sun-browned skin, tells you that the Nile has seen many rulers, but it always returns to its banks. The river doesn't care who sits on the throne, he says with a wink. It just keeps flowing. You pause to watch a scribe at work, his reed pen scratching across a sheet of papyrus. He's copying a poem, the words flowing in elegant Greek script. You ask if he misses the old days, and he shrugs. The stories change, but the writing goes on. He offers you a scrap of papyrus, and you try your hand at a few letters, your handwriting wobbly but earnest. The scribe laughs softly, encouraging you to keep practicing. Everyone starts somewhere, he says, even the great poets. Historians still debate how much ordinary Egyptians cared about the changes in power. Did they mourn the end of the Ptolemies, or simply adjust their prayers and carry on? The evidence is mixed. Some records show quiet resistance, others show eager adaptation. Perhaps, like most people, they simply did what they had to do, finding comfort in the familiar and curiosity in the new. As the afternoon drifts on, you find yourself in a shaded courtyard, the air cool and fragrant with jasmine. A group of neighbors gathers to share a meal: bread, cheese, olives, and a little wine. They talk about their children, their gardens, and the latest gossip from the market. The conversation is easy, the laughter soft. You realize that, for all the changes swirling around them, the heart of Alexandria beats on in these quiet moments of community. You lean back, close your eyes, and let the sounds of the city wash over you: the distant call of a street vendor, the soft clink of pottery, the gentle hum of voices. Alexandria is changing, yes, but it's also enduring, adapting, and finding new ways to be itself. You feel a sense of peace, knowing that even in the face of empire, the simple joys of daily life remain. The afternoon sun slants through the city, casting long shadows across Alexandria's palaces and gardens. You find yourself drawn toward the old royal quarter, where the walls are thick with memories, and the air still carries a faint trace of perfume and incense. The grand halls that once echoed with Cleopatra's laughter are quieter now, their marble floors swept clean, their fountains trickling softly in the background. You walk past the palace gates, now guarded by Roman soldiers who look only half interested in their new assignment. The days of royal processions and golden barges are over. The city's last queen is gone, and with her, the Ptolemaic dynasty has faded into legend. But what of those left behind? What happened to Cleopatra's children, her family, her loyal servants who once moved through these corridors with purpose and pride? One widely accepted fact: after Cleopatra's death, her children's fates were decided by Rome. Caesarion, her eldest son, rumored to be the child of Julius Caesar, was captured and executed on the orders of Octavian, soon to be Augustus. The other children, Alexander, Helios, Cleopatra, Selene, and Ptolemy Philadelphus, were taken to Rome, paraded through the streets in Octavian's triumph, and then placed in the care of his sister, Octavia. But here's a lesser-known detail. Cleopatra Selene, her daughter, would go on to become a queen in her own right, ruling Mauritania in North Africa and carrying a piece of Egypt with her into a new land. You imagine the royal apartments, now once filled with music, poetry, and the scent of lotus blossoms, standing silent. The tapestries faded, the gardens overgrown. The servants who remain move quietly, their footsteps echoing in empty halls. Some have found new roles in the Roman administration, while others have slipped away, blending into the city's quieter corners. You pass a gardener tending to a row of roses, his hands gentle as he prunes the blooms. He glances up, offers a small smile, and returns to his work. The roses, he tells you, were Cleopatra's favorite. He keeps them blooming, a quiet tribute to a queen who loved beauty in all its forms. You pause at a small shrine tucked into a shaded alcove. Its simpler clay lamp, a few coins, a sprig of myrrh. The city remembers, even if the world has moved on. In the city's quieter neighborhoods, you hear whispers of the royal family's fate. Some say Cleopatra's children were treated kindly in Rome. Others claim they lived in the shadow of their mother's legend, always watched, never quite free. Historians still wonder about the details, how much freedom they had, whether they missed the sound of the Nile, the taste of Egyptian honey, the sight of ibis birds at dawn. The records are silent on these small human details, but you can imagine the ache of homesickness, the longing for a world that no longer exists. You wander through the palace gardens, where the air is thick with the scent of jasmine and orange blossoms. The fountains still bubble, the birds still sing, but the laughter of children is gone. You sit on a stone bench, running your fingers over the smooth surface, and think of Cleopatra, Selene, far away in Mauritania, teaching her own children the stories of Egypt, of the great river, the golden temples, the clever queen who once ruled a kingdom by the sea. A gentle breeze stirs the leaves, and you close your eyes, listening to the soft rustle. You wonder if the royal family's loyal servants ever gathered here in the evenings, sharing memories and quiet tears. Did they tell stories of Cleopatra's wit, her courage, her love for her children? Did they light lamps in her memory, hoping that somewhere the gods were listening? You rise and wander back through the empty halls, your footsteps echoing in the silence. The palace is a place of ghosts now, but also of resilience. Life goes on, even in the shadow of loss. The cooks still bake bread, the gardeners still tend the roses, and the city's children still play in the streets, their laughter rising above the quiet. As you leave the royal quarter, you pass a group of Roman officials discussing the future of the palace. Some want to turn it into a government office. Others suggest a museum. A few simply shrug and move on to the next topic. You realize that, for all their power, the Romans are just as uncertain about the future as anyone else. The past lingers, quietly shaping the present, even as new stories begin to unfold. You step out into the sunlight, feeling the warmth on your face, and take a deep breath. The city is changing, but the memory of Cleopatra and her family lingers in the stones, the gardens, the hearts of those who remember. You walk on, carrying their story with you, a gentle thread woven into the tapestry of Alexandria's long, sleepy afternoon. The afternoon drifts on, and you find yourself drawn to the heart of Alexandria's old intellect, the great library. Its columns rise like silent sentinels above the city, and the air around it is thick with the scent of papyrus ink and a hint of dust that never quite settles. You step inside, and the world grows quieter, as if the very stones are holding their breath, listening for the next great idea to be whispered among the shelves. The library is not as bustling as it once was. Now, a handful of scholars move quietly through the stacks, their sandals soft against the marble floors. Some are Greek, some Egyptian, and a few are new arrivals from Rome. Their togas a little too crisp, their eyes wide with the wonder of so many scrolls in one place. You wander past a table where an elderly librarian is carefully repairing a torn scroll. His hands are steady, his eyes sharp behind a pair of polished glass lenses. He glances up as you pass, offering a nod and a faint smile. Knowledge endures, he murmurs, almost to himself, even when kingdoms fall. You pause, watching as he brushes a bit of dust from the papyrus, and you realize that, for some, the pursuit of wisdom is a kind of quiet rebellion against the chaos of history. One widely accepted fact: the Library of Alexandria was the greatest repository of knowledge in the ancient world, a beacon for scholars and dreamers alike. But here's a lesser-known detail. Even after the city changed hands, the library continued to function, though on a smaller scale. Roman officials, recognizing its value, allowed the scholars to continue their works so long as they didn't cause trouble or write anything to sedition. Historians still wonder how many scrolls survived the city's many upheavals, and how many were quietly copied, hidden, or spirited away by devoted librarians. You find a quiet corner where a young scholar is reading by the light of a high window. She's lost in a treatise on astronomy, her lips moving silently as she traces the stars on a faded parchment. You sit nearby, listening to the soft scratch of her pen as she makes notes in the margin. Occasionally, she glances up, her eyes bright with curiosity, and you sense that the hunger for knowledge is as strong as ever, even in uncertain times. A group of Roman officials enters, their voices low as they consult with the head librarian. They're interested in map-strayed routes, river crossings, the best way to move grain from the Nile to the sea. The librarian obliges, unrolling a map so old the edges crumble at his touch. The Romans nod, make a few notes, and leave, their sandals echoing down the long hall. The librarian sighs, then carefully rolls the map back up, as if tucking away a secret. You wander deeper into the library, past shelves stacked high with scrolls, some new, some ancient, some so worn the ink has faded to a whisper. You spot a scroll labeled on the habits of Nile crocodiles, and another, more mysterious, simply titled Dreams. You wonder who wrote these, and whether their words have ever been read, or if they're waiting for someone, maybe you, to bring them back to life. In a quiet alcove, a pair of scholars debate the merits of Greek versus Egyptian mathematics. Their voices are soft, but their gestures are animated, and you catch snippets of words, geometry, stars, floods. You smile, realizing that some arguments are eternal, and that the pursuit of knowledge is its own kind of comfort, a way to make sense of a world that is always changing. Historians still debate the fate of the library, how much was lost, how much survived, and whether the spirit of inquiry that once filled its halls ever truly faded. Some say the library's greatest treasure was not its scrolls, but its people, the scholars, scribes, and dreamers who kept the flame of curiosity alive, even as empires rose and fell. As the afternoon light slants through the high windows, you find yourself growing drowsy, lulled by the soft rustle of parchment and the gentle hum of scholarly debate. You close your eyes for a moment, imagining the library as it once was alive with voices, laughter, and the quiet thrill of discovery. Even now, in this quieter age, the library endures, a sanctuary for those who seek wisdom in a world that so often prefers noise. You rise, stretching your legs, and make your way back toward the entrance. The librarian gives you a knowing look, as if to say that you're always welcome here. Whenever you need a quiet place to think, you step out into the sunlight, blinking at the brightness, and feel a sense of peace. The world outside may be changing, but within these walls, the love of learning remains a gentle, steady light in the heart of Alexandria. You step out from the cool hush of the library and into the sunlit streets, where the city's ancient temples rise above the rooftops like islands in a sea of stone. Their columns are weathered, their paint faded, but they still stand silent witnesses to centuries of prayers, processions, and whispered hopes. You wander toward the great temple of Isis, its entrance flanked by statues whose faces have been softened by wind and time. The temple courtyard is quieter than it once was. The crowds that used to gather for festivals and rituals are smaller now, and the priests move with a kind of careful dignity, their white linen robes glowing in the afternoon light. You watch as they light incense, the sweet smoke curling into the air, carrying prayers to gods who have watched over Egypt since before the first stone of Alexandria was laid. One widely accepted fact: even after the Romans arrived, the old Egyptian gods were not forgotten overnight. Temples continued their rituals, and the people still brought offerings, bread, fruit, flowers, and the occasional carved cat. But here's a lesser-known detail. The Romans, ever practical, often adopted local gods into their own pantheon, blending traditions in ways that sometimes confused even the priests. Isis, for example, became popular across the Roman world, her image appearing in temples as far away as London and Rome. Historians still wonder how much of this was genuine devotion, and how much was simply a way to keep the peace in a city of many faiths. You slip inside the temple, where the air is cool and heavy with the scent of myrrh. The walls are covered in painted scenes, gods and goddesses, pharaohs and priests, all frozen in a dance that has lasted for millennia. A priestess stands at the altar, her hands steady as she arranges offerings. She glances at you, her eyes kind, and gestures for you to approach. You kneel, feeling the smooth stone beneath your knees, and listen as she murmurs a blessing in a language older than the city itself. In a side chamber, you find a group of worshippers gathered around a small statue of Anubis, the jackal-headed god of the afterlife. They light candles, their faces soft in the flickering glow, and offer quiet prayers for loved ones lost and journeys yet to come. You join them for a moment, letting the silence settle around you, feeling the weight of centuries in the air. Outside, a Roman official stands at the edge of the courtyard, watching the proceedings with a mixture of curiosity and caution. He makes a few notes on his wax tablet, then turns away, perhaps wondering if the gods of Egypt are truly so different from those of Rome. You catch his eye, and he shrugs, as if to say that faith is faith, no matter the language or the name. You wander through the temple gardens, where lotus flowers bloom in still pools and birds flit among the reeds. A group of children plays nearby, their laughter echoing off the stone walls. One of them wears a simple amulet shaped like a scarab, a symbol of rebirth and protection. You remember the potter's words from earlier people, like what's familiar, but they're curious about what's new. Here, in the shadow of the temple, the old and the new exist side by side, each finding its own place in the sun. Historians still debate how long the old gods lingered in Alexandria, and whether their worship ever truly ended. Some say the temples faded quietly, their rituals carried on in secret by a few devoted souls. Others believe the gods simply changed their names, slipping into new stories and new prayers as the centuries rolled by. You wonder if, somewhere in the city, a priest still lights a lamp for Isis each night, whispering the old words just in case she's still listening. As the sun begins to set, the temple bells ring out, their sound soft and mournful. You pause at the entrance, looking back at the columns bathed in golden light. The gods may be quieter now, but their presence lingers in the stones, in the stories, in the hearts of those who remember. You step back into the street, carrying a sense of calm with you, as if the old gods have offered you a blessing for the journey ahead. The city is quieter now, the shadows growing longer as evening approaches. You walk slowly, letting the peace of the temple settle into your bones. Alexandria is a city of many faiths, many stories, and many gods, some remembered, some forgotten, all woven into the gentle tapestry of daily life. As dusk settles over Alexandria, you feel the pull of the river the Nile, ancient and eternal, winding its way through the heart of Egypt. You leave the city's stone streets behind and wander toward the riverbanks, where the air is cooler and the world feels softer, wrapped in the gentle hush of evening. The Nile has always been the lifeblood of Egypt, its floods marking the rhythm of planting and harvest, its waters carrying stories older than any city. You find a quiet spot beneath a stand of date palms, their fronds rustling in the breeze. The river glimmers in the fading light, its surface broken only by the slow passage of a fishing boat, the oars dipping in and out of the water with a steady, soothing rhythm. A farmer stands at the edge of the fields, his feet bare in the mud, checking the irrigation channels that snake away from the river like silver threads. He waves as you approach, his face creased with a smile that speaks of long days and quiet pride. One widely accepted fact: the Nile's annual flood was the foundation of Egyptian life, bringing rich silt to the fields and ensuring bountiful harvests. The Romans, recognizing the river's importance, quickly set about organizing its management, sending officials to measure the floodwaters and record the yields. But here, as a lesser-known detail, many of the local farmers continued to rely on the old ways, reading the river's moods, watching the flight of birds, and listening to the stories passed down from their ancestors. Historians still wonder how much Roman administration truly changed the rhythms of rural life, or if the river simply carried on, indifferent to the latest rulers. You sit with the farmer for a while, sharing a simple meal of bread, cheese, and sweet dates. He tells you about the year's flood, how it was a little higher than usual, how the fish have been plentiful, how the lotus flowers are blooming early. His voice is calm, unhurried, as if the river's slow pace has seeped into his bones. He points out a heron standing motionless in the shallows, waiting for its chance to strike. Patience, he says, is the Nile's greatest lesson. As the sky deepens to indigo, you watch as families gather along the banks, their voices low and content. Children skip stones across the water, their laughter mingling with the soft splash of the river. A group of women wash clothes at the water's edge, their hands moving in time with an old song, the melody rising and falling like the current. You realize that, for all the changes in the city, life along the Nile remains much the same, rooted in the earth, guided by the river's ancient wisdom. You wander further along the bank, passing a small shrine built of sun-baked brick. Inside, a flickering lamp casts shadows on the walls, illuminating a painted image of Hapi, the god of the Nile. Someone has left offerings flowers, a handful of grain, a tiny clay boat. You pause, feeling the weight of tradition in the air, and wonder how many generations have stood here, giving thanks for the river's gifts. Historians still debate whether the Nile's cycles were ever truly tamed by human hands, or if the river simply allowed itself to be guided for a while before returning to its own mysterious ways. The Roman engineers may have built new canals and measured the floods with careful precision, but the river's spirit remained unchanged, wild, generous, and a little unpredictable. As night falls, the river glows with the reflection of 1,000 stars. You lie back in the grass, listening to the gentle lap of water against the shore, the distant call of a night-bird, the soft murmur of families heading home. The Nile flows on, carrying memories and dreams, its current as steady as the passage of time. You close your eyes, letting the cool air and the river's song lull you into a state of deep calm. The world feels smaller here, simpler, as if all the noise and worry of the city has been left behind. The Nile has seen empires rise and fall, queens and conquerors come and go, but it endures patient, generous, and always moving forward. You take a slow, deep breath, feeling the peace of the river settle over you like a soft blanket. Tomorrow the city will wake again, the markets will bustle, and the Romans will continue their careful management. But tonight the Nile belongs to the stars, the herons, and the quiet hearts of those who listen. The last light of day slips away, and Alexandria glows under a sky scattered with stars. The city, so full of stories and change, now settles into a gentle hush. You wander back from the riverbanks, your steps slow and unhurried, feeling the coolness of the evening wrap around you like a soft cloak. The marble streets are quieter now, the bustle of the day replaced by the soft murmur of neighbors sharing a final word, the distant strum of a lyre, and the occasional bark of a dog chasing shadows. You pass a row of houses where lamps flicker in the windows, casting golden pools of light onto the street. The scent of roasting garlic and herbs drifts from an open doorway, and you catch a glimpse of a family gathered around a low table, sharing bread and stories. Their laughter is gentle, the kind that comes at the end of a long day when worries are set aside and only the warmth of company remains. You pause for a moment, letting the sound wash over you, a reminder that even in times of change, the heart of the city beats on in these quiet, everyday rituals. You make your way toward the agora, now nearly empty, except for a few late vendors packing up their wares. A cat weaves between the stalls, tail high, pausing to accept a scratch behind the ears before disappearing into the night. The statues of old gods and emperors stand watch, their faces serene in the moonlight, as if they too are settling in for a well-earned rest. One widely accepted fact: Alexandria, even under Roman rule, remained a city of many cultures, a place where Greek, Egyptian, Roman, and Jewish traditions mingled in the streets, the markets, and the homes. But here's a lesser-known detail. At night, when the city quieted, neighbors would sometimes gather on rooftops to share news, gaze at the stars, and tell stories of the old days. Historians still wonder what tales were told in those hours of lost queens, clever gods, and the slow, steady turning of the world. You climb a narrow staircase to a rooftop where a small group sits in a circle, passing a jug of wine and a plate of figs. They welcome you with a nod, making space for you to sit. The city stretches out below, a patchwork of rooftops and gardens, temples and towers, all bathed in the soft silver of the moon. Someone begins to tell a story, an old tale of Isis and Osiris, of love and loss and the promise of renewal. The words are familiar, comforting, and you find yourself drifting, lulled by the gentle cadence of the storyteller's voice. As the story ends, the group falls silent, each person lost in their own thoughts. You look up at the stars, brighter here than anywhere else in the city, and feel a sense of connection to the people around you, to the generations who have watched these same constellations, to the city itself as it quietly endures. Historians still debate what Alexandria's people dreamed of in those nights after Cleopatra did. They long for the old days, or look forward to the new. Did they mourn what was lost, or find hope in what remained? Perhaps, like you, they simply cherished the peace of the present moment, the gentle certainty that life, in all its small and beautiful ways, would go on. You rise, bidding your new friends good night, and make your way back down the stairs. The city is nearly silent now. The only sounds, the distant lap of waves against the harbor and the soft cooing of doves roosting in the eaves. You return to your room, slip beneath a woven blanket, and let the cool night air settle around you. As you close your eyes, you hear the faintest echo of the day's stories, the laughter of children, the prayers in the temple, the scholars' quiet debate, the river's song. Alexandria sleeps, and so do you, wrapped in the gentle embrace of a city that has seen so much and still finds time for peace. The world outside your window is changing, but here, in the quiet of night, you are safe, you are home, and you are part of the long, slow story of Egypt, one that will continue softly and steadily long after you drift into dreams.